Core Cloud System is the developer and of TimberScan. So what you're going to see today is an additional group of products that we have. It's like our mobile and portal extension products. And as we get into it, you'll kind of see how we all kind of work together. We're excited to offer this out to our clients. We think it's just a one product that is just a step in the right direction towards mobilization and things like that. So as we go through this, hopefully I'll have some room for some questions. If you have any questions, you can just plug them into chat, and then I'll stop at certain points as we go down the road. One of the things that if you use TimberScan, one of the things that we've done is we've basically mastered the accounts payable process system. Done so for about 12 years. We've got about 30,000 users, about 1,500 clients. We're growing at leaps and bounds in the TimberScan world, or the Sage world, with our products, both the Sage 100 and the Sage 300 product areas. We've been very good at this. We've kind of pioneered what we call entry point validation. So if you utilize our accounts payable product, you're used to being able to hit the lookups and have all the information that Sage provides you as if you were doing it within Sage. We also have what we call single touch functionality, which means that in our AP functionality, we actually have to where you touch the document once, and it's basically from that point forward, it's completely paperless, and all your touches are electronic. So as we go through the presentation, what you're going to see real quickly is this same concept that we have in the TimberScan world that's been so successful. We've now deployed out into our portal product, which is called Core Cloud Systems, and that product allows us to take and mobilize forms and other applications of accounts payable and put those on a mobile device, have them workflow through the cloud, and then automatically come into TimberScan and get posted to Sage as if basically it's a single entry function. So the same entry point validation, the same single touch functionality, no duplicate data entry, all of those features that we built and we pioneered in the TimberScan world, we've now incorporated in our portal world so that you get the same kind of look and feel, the same kind of ergonomic design, so that organically you now can start documents out into the field on a mobile phone and have those documents flow all the way through to Sage without having to do a double entry. And that's what our kind of claim to fame is, and that's where we're kind of making everything work. If you're used to this particular process in TimberScan AP routing, generally speaking, what you're looking at is this particular functionality where we have a 5-step program where we capture the documents. We basically then do the initial coding, the approval, the final steps, and then we update Sage. And all of this is done paperlessly so that you can eliminate all the paper. And so if you just in simplest terms, we basically have moved that out to the mobile with all the other documents that you're used to processing within a company. We built the product Core Cloud on what we call a rapid development tool, so that literally you can build your own apps. So what we consider a form, just kind of replace it with apps. We call it a form for a couple of reasons. One of them is that generally speaking, it is a form. So it's collecting data in the field. Secondarily, it's also the fact that it's less intimidating to the field. You start talking about apps and then you got to go, oh, I don't, another, here we go again, another something else I got to learn. Well, in this case, it's a new form. So it's a lot more receptive in the field area. So what you can now do is within one single user environment, you can now deploy different applications, call them forms, and you as a customer, or with the help of your dealer or ourselves, we can help you develop these apps so that you can now build a work process system off of that form that basically takes it from soup to nuts. It goes from the entry function through an approval function, through a final resting stage, all the way into Sage and TimberScan, and gets stored there. So you can see right away, this is going to be a very powerful product for not only just certain aspects of it, but across the board. We have 4 core features, and well, the first feature is a form wizard. So that means that we give you a wizard, an English-style entry function that allows you to develop what the front end of the app is going to look like. What questions are we going to ask? In what order are we going to ask it? Do we need to have Spanish, Spanish as well as English, or French, and or whatever, whatever the case may be. The second thing is that what kind of routing are we going to use? What's the workflow of that form? And that's where it separates us from other companies in the forms world, is that because we're an app, we're a true app. So you build your form, you build your workflow, and then from that standpoint, basically, once you submit it, it goes into our global folders for filing, and it can also automatically go into TimberScan for filing and paperclip itself into Sage. So for a standard form, that might be the workflow of the paper, getting it to the paperclip section of the Sage product. However, it could be a payroll timesheet, could be a credit card receipt. And for that matter, we may have other additional functionality within the workflow that just automates process. So you're going to see that in the presentation today. And overall, everything that we do, we store. So every tit and tittle of information that we gather, we store so that you can report, search, run metrics on, submit to other systems and tie it together. So all of that inclusive is basically what you're going to get with the core cloud solution. Okay, just to give you some examples of some forms and products that we have. For instance, in the forms world, we originally started just getting credit card receipts in, where a guy could go in, snap a picture of his credit card receipt, put in a little information, and route it into the office, and then pump it out to an Excel spreadsheet. And then we looked at it and said, well, you know what? That's half the job. The other half the job is doing the reconciliation and then getting it into Sage. So what we've done is we basically built a credit card reconciliation module. So it's an end-to-end process, including reconciliation, where we can download the transactions from your vendor and then basically take that transaction and process it all the way through to Sage and store it as an AP transaction. Now, in the Sage 100 world, we can pass that receipt into the credit card entry function if you wanted to use their reconciliation component. So we have different aspects of the workflow that can be designed based on how you want to use it. So the biggest other feature of what Core Cloud System does is with this rapid development tool, we now can assist you in engineering work product that fits your way of doing business. When we designed the product, we wanted to make sure that we had a tool that our dealers could use, that they could go in and solve business problems or collect business information using mobile functionality and routing and workflow and automation and all of those things that we've done in the TimberScan world. We wanted to be able to give that tool to our dealers and our customers so that they could build their own workflows as opposed to having to conform to somebody else's workflow. So what's really unique about all this is that basically what you're going to get is that particular process. And these are some of the examples that we have, like expense forms, timesheets, credit cards, change orders, purchase orders, receiving tickets, things like that that you generally use. And then, of course, you can create anything for HR or for that matter, just, any kind of form that you basically use. And this is what it looks like in general. It's a big picture. It shows how we basically have bidirectional integration. So you can have lookups and things like that basically flow along the way. And I'm going to show you this in a quick video that I've done so that you can see how this particular workflow actually looks in an actual process. So the interface of our system is a single user interface. It can scale to whatever device that basically you want to use. So that generally speaking, what's happening here is you're seeing it's on my desktop, but I've scaled it down to what you would see on a mobile phone. Now, once on the mobile phone, you notice it's got big buttons, it's got easy white space, so it's not confusing. So they can click on my forms, and let's say I'm doing a daily report. I can collect the job, I can go select the form, and each one of those are little apps, right? Now, watch how this entry works. As I'm going through the entry process, what's really unique about our system is that entry point validation. So you have date questions, you have temperature questions, you've got list types where you can have consistency. So you could say, give me all the rain days, like in weather conditions, which you see here. So there's different aspects that you can build when you're building your app so that you can make that data entry in the field level just very, very specific. Now you're fixing to see the entry point validation because some of the questions can be tied, and we deliver it tied to your TimberScan or your Timberline or your Sage data. When you get down to subcontractor and you start typing in the subs, it knows the subs on that job, so you can go ahead and it automatically updates that information. So the guys have a chance to pick and choose. They can dictate into here. So if they have a lot of information they want to communicate, they don't have to always type it in. They can dictate it. Now, these forms can go on the workflow. So they can be automatically routed, or they can be routed on the fly, or you might just have an email distribution to where you're letting somebody know that that particular form is going out and it's going to be handled from that standpoint. You can collect signatures. Like in this case, it routed, it sent an email, the person comes in, looks at it, reviews it, and they can apply their signature. And from that entry, it automatically goes into Sage 100 or Sage 300. And from there, it's stored and indexed and paperclipped to Sage. So this is where you would go into AIM and search it up. Or if you came into Sage 100, you'd actually go into our T100 product and search it. So you build a document type, and we have just a placeholder now for that particular daily report so it can be looked up in there. And that's what you're seeing right here. Now, one of the cool parts about this is the output that you're going to see is also user configured. And that's what makes our forms tool a lot more dynamic than everybody else's, is because you can build a form that has very good looking, you can brand it however, it's like a word processor. You just add the questions in there. So when you hit the view, it gives you a very attractive form that you can actually build and design for your own company's use, whether it be internal or external. And in this case, I'm searching that document, and there's a form that I wanted to be able to have, and it collects signatures, pictures, all the things that you had that particular form is gathering. You gain that here. And then, of course, the final step, now I'm showing this in the Sage world 300, but in the 100 world, it would be the paperclip. And you can paperclip this into different aspects of your Sage product. So like in this case, I just attach it to the job record. So you can kind of see how that's going, and you can see where that works. And in this case, you just hit the paperclip, hit open, and there's that particular document. Single entry, entry point validation, workflow, whether it's mobile web or we brought it into our system, into the on-premise functionality for that, and then it automatically has the placeholders for the filing. So you eliminate all of those steps. You don't have to make copies anymore. It's automatically stored. But more so than everything, which is where Core Cloud is different than everybody else, every bit of data that we collected on that daily report is also built and stored in our system for searching and reporting. So as we go along, the next step is form creation. This is very straightforward. We use, when you're going into the wizard, it has a 5-bullet wizard function. What happens here is you can organize it by, you give it a form name, you build the categories, and within the categories you have questions. And as you go through this and you set up the questions, you control the order, the actual description. So you actually build what the user is going to experience in the field. And again, if it's a question type like a date or dollar amount or a field upload, file upload, or an image upload, this tells whether or not it's going to trigger the camera or the gallery, or if it's on a desktop, whether it's a drag and drop. You can have like questions like yes, no, and A, or temperature questions. And then, of course, we deliver it already integrated with subs. So if it's a table question, you can go in and choose a table in Timberline or Sage 100 to get to that point and be able to do that. And then, of course, this is where you tie it into T100 or TimberScan, and this is so that the product knows where to go place it once it's actually gone through the CCS workflow, and what document type and indexes are going to correlate to the questions. And so basically in the form creation, it's very simple. That's as easy as it is. And then you go in and you can build your report output. You remember I said you can define your report output however you want it to look. And you can see right away, I can put graphics in here, I can put pictures in here. So it gives you a full-fledged designer, just like Crystal, that allows you to tie it to the form so that whenever you produce the image has the quality that you can is required for whatever the distribution is. Since we are searching and we store all the content, you can search all the content, and it's like Google. So like in this particular example, I may know that I talked to a guy named Fred between this date range, and I want to see which daily report and what I said to him. So I could go put that criterion here. Now remember, I can do all this on my mobile phone as long as I have an internet connection. So I can go search all this information like that. Once it shows me the hits, I can pull up the data and I can review the data. Maybe I need another copy of the form. I can just regen the form. So the content that we manage inside the portal is the data content. And we manage we can always regenerate the image content, but the image content is what we generally pass over to Sage and Paperclip so that you have the image backup. So you can see right away from a standpoint of data, we have all aspects of that covered. Okay? Yeah, because again, on reporting, you have the same issues. So you can go through there and make the questions reportable, and then you can generate reports and have all sorts of search functionality, grouping, filtering. And then once you get it to that format, you can actually just push it out to Excel. So the data that you're actually working with actually works, you know, from a standpoint, since we have the data, we give you tools to be able to pull that information out. Okay? So before we jump into some of the applications, is there any questions in chat? Does anybody have any questions at all? If you do so, you can chat them in right now, and I'll take a look, and if not, I'll move on.
Yep.
All right.
It doesn't look like we have any questions there, and we don't have any questions in the questions section either. So
perfect.
Go
okay.
ahead and move on. Yep.
All right. So let's talk about some of these applications. So if you can appreciate what I've shown you, is that's how you would set up. That's why we're an actual application development tool. We're not just a forms tool. Okay. We literally build an application. So at the end of the day, when you're doing and looking at different products that are on the market, our product is an app developer, and we call it one app for all because in theory, you should be able to take our app and apply it to any business solution. And that's what we're going to go into to talk about today. For instance, you may have a solution for purchasing. Maybe you want to introduce purchasing and you want to introduce it to the field, or you might have paper purchase orders out in the field. Well, you can build your purchase order app, which is basically designing the form. What do you want the form to say? What do you want it integrated with? Do you want to tie it to inventory items, or do you want to be able to give the guys a chance to be able to do a material request as opposed to a PO? So you can build the form, and you can build it in any fashion that you want, and then you can build a workflow that says, hey, this particular purchase order needs to route over to a particular individual for approval. And that's where you can get that set up, and you can have approval management here. And that can be done in the web. All right, you can collaborate back and forth on the purchase order. Maybe I don't want to buy all that right now. So you can have that kind of response, and it's all documented. Now, once it gets to this point, it then can get sent to the vendor. Or maybe it comes into the purchasing department, and the purchasing manager just sends it to the vendor. Or he may come in and say, look, I want to integrate it with purchasing, or I want to integrate it with commitments. So I can then turn around and bring that straight in through an import into the commitment module, or if it's Sage 100, we actually direct read right to the purchase order side, and we can create those purchase orders here, and that way they can be, the purchase order itself can be sent out as an image through the Sage product. So you have different aspects of the work order, but there's no double entry. The entry functionality can be integrated with Sage, so we can have the lookup features here, so that when I get ready to push it over here to Sage, all of that's already done. And then, of course, if you're using our TimberScan products, then basically you can send the images along to that with here. So if you wanted to do a three-way match with receiver tickets, you would have a receiver ticket form. And that would automatically come into Sage as well, into TimberScan as well. So that virtually when you get the invoice in the door, you can match it up with the invoice, the paper, the packing slip, and the purchase order. So you can see right away the dynamic of what you can do with your app. And this is just one example with purchasing. Now, I'll show you a more advanced feature of purchasing as we go down the road. But this is one of our simpler forms or simpler purchasing processes as we go through this. This is our payroll solution. Okay. Now, we're pretty proud of this. One of the things that we've done with some simple implementations is that you build a payroll form, and then you just basically submit it into the system, into a spreadsheet, and then somebody takes that and keys it into payroll. And so what we did is we said, well, let's build a payroll solution. Let's go ahead and get payroll in. So I went and looked at all the different systems out there, and the first thing that I recognized is that everybody wanted you to fit into their systems, and they're multi-tenant. That means that their system was set up to run 500 customers. Well, I built ours so that basically we could customize our system to our customers, because there's always that little nuance. If you want to be able to do. Maybe it's with per diem, maybe it's with production, maybe you want to include the daily report in with the payroll time. So what I did is I built the system so that you could have a variety of timesheets for different aspects of your business, clock in, clock out. You might have a crew-based daily, a crew-based weekly. You might have an individual maintenance guy that goes around to different jobs. And those timesheets can be generated and routed and either approved in the timesheet format here, or they could actually come into a grid sorted by supervisor or by project manager to where they would only approve the time they're responsible for. But yet, while at the same time, that same grid feature is what payroll looks at. Because I've sat behind the desk and I've had to process payroll for thousands of people. That day or 2 days before payroll was always just a nightmare. And then, God forbid, you forget some time, and then you got to go do all that other stuff. So I built the system so that payroll could monitor time during the course of the week, run a missing time report to see where they're at, so that when it came to payday, all I had to do is make sure that all my time was in. I touch a button, and I create an import file that sends it over to payroll. No double entry. I've got approval functionality all across the way, so I can have multiple people touch this time so that they can see what's going on. And then of course your payroll processor is just she's the air traffic controller of all this information. So she's collecting it and looking at it and seeing what's going on with it as it comes down the line. Now, what's really unique is the fact that we can do customizations. Like I talked to a lady this morning that they have contract employees. Well, they want to know how do we mix our contract employees with our regular employees, but not have them update and mess up our payroll. Well, we have a methodology for that, so we can build that into there. Per diems, equipment. I can capture production in timesheets and have that report over here and send, like for instance, I may send a transaction to ADP. I may send a transaction to equipment. I may send a transaction into the payroll system. Or if you're using Sage 100, I could send it in along with the daily report so that it can get consumed within the standard process of the Sage 100 daily report. So the payroll solution is another one that we've actually pretty proud of, and we've been very successful with it as we go down the road, because we can tailor this to your specific requirements. All right. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in and talk to you about our credit card solution. Now, our credit card solution is really unique in the fact that when we designed it, we looked out there again. We said, you know what? The big deal about credit cards, what we think is best practices is that the minute I use my credit card, I want to be able to take that receipt and snap a picture, whether I'm at a gas pump or whatever. I might be eating with some folks. Well, I just want to snap a picture of that. Okay. Now, you can either snap a picture of it immediately and then be able to turn back around. Like for instance, when I use it, I go out and get on the airplane, or if I'm traveling, while I'm spending time or sitting at the airport, I can sit there and process all my receipts for my travel and match them up. But once I do that, it automatically then can get routed in for approval, and it goes into our reconciliation program. So that is the only touch of the process. Now, if I do coding, I can have coding. If I don't do coding, I just bypass that, and it can get coded by somebody else. But at the end of the day, that receipt can come into our reconciliation program where you download the transactions from your vendor, match them up automatically, and then the items that it can't match up, you go through and work, okay? If you're missing a receipt, you can ding the person and send a receipt out to them and say, hey, I need support for this card transaction. So once you've cleared out all your transactions, then we automatically send that into Sage through TimberScan or T100. And we can package up the transaction so there's no double entry. I can eliminate 70% of the time you have processing credit card transactions and giving you more power, because now if you do a lot of it and you're giving your credit card transaction functionality or credit cards out to your field, I can get and individualize those receipts so that when they come in and they hit job costs, it's doing it every day, not waiting till 30 days when your statement comes in. So you see right away, our credit card features have a tremendous amount of impact, all being done in the same core cloud system. So you can buy these modules as you go down the way. Now, I'm going to show you a video here. It's a very simple video. It's our credit card receipt transaction, but you're going to see how simplistic it is. And this is important because field management and field rollouts of these particular products, it has to be simple. So when they log in, this is our mobile app that you download from the store, and this is an Android. So that you see the big buttons, I got big fat fingers. I can hit the button, I select the form or the app that I'm going to use, and as I go through this process, you can see right away. I hit the date, it pops up a modal. If I come in here and I do the card, I have 3 cards, so I can pick which card I used. Okay, the vendor, I can dictate this, or basically I can come in and type it in. And you'll see the dictation function here in a minute. When it comes to actually putting in and coding, it's going to have a lookup feature. So I plug in the amount. Now, in my case, I don't do multiple distributions, but if you need that, I can set that up here too. So all of this is lookup. Now I'm going to dictate my notes, so you can see how that works. And you see, if you're used to the phone, this is pretty common. Now, once it gets time to doing the picture, I can either snap it right then and there, or I could have pulled it from my gallery. And I can do this while I'm flying in an airplane. Okay. Now, once I submit that particular transaction, it now goes into my credit card system, and it takes care of that, or it could be routed to my supervisor for approval before it goes into the credit card system. And that's the credit card process application. So I'll stop right here. Is there any other questions or anything like that on any of those 3 or 4 applications that you may have a question about?
We don't have any questions yet. If anybody does, go ahead and enter them into the chat or into the questions box.
All right. Now, I told you a little bit earlier, we've actually are expanding out our product line to material management with purchasing and inventory control and bill of material management. We found that a lot of clients really want to get involved in inventory. So what we did is we looked at Sage's inventory system, and we said, you know what, we're going to match the features, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to mobilize it and put it in the cloud. And we're going to take some efficiency points that we think that we could do a little bit better. So this has been about a 2.5-year effort. It's a little, it's the way we price it, because it's a customized product. That means that we tailor it to our customers. That basically what you're looking at here is that when you buy the system, you buy the specification writing, and we can do some things in here for barcoding and stuff like that that are customized. But generally speaking, all the workup process that you would do in the main system, as far as getting transactions for, say, worksheets, purchase orders, receiving, can be mobilized. So if I want to create a PO on my phone, it'll automatically come into the purchase order module. If I want to do a material request, that means that it's a material-based PO, not a vendor-based PO. Then it'll come in and create a worksheet, so my purchasing agent can basically, send out a quote using Excel, get the quotes back, and then assign the vendors and automatically generate the POs from that. But we have 2 methods of purchasing, which is traditional purchase order, and then we have material-based purchasing. We can do transfers. Because we're a true inventory system, you can bring everything into inventory and then allocate and transfer those to the job sites. You can consume at the job sites. You can also reserve items off of your bill of materials on your estimates, so that you can build location item lists. So when the guys in the field are selecting or requesting purchasing, they're only picking from the items that they have versus the 4,000 that are in the main database. A lot of folks, they don't use the inventory section of this, but they use the inventory for books, where we can import vendor price books. So when the guys are in the field, they have lookup features and stuff like that. So it's very, very flexible. But the minute that you get the purchasing done and you got all the information there, you submit the PO, it automatically creates and sends the image of the PO into TimberScan. It automatically sends the PO file over to Sage, so that you can import that in as commitments, or if it's a Sage 100, it updates directly the purchase order system. And then down here, it sends the vendor an email PO if you want to choose to do so. So all of that's done just from one click update. Now, on the receiving side, the same thing happens here, is that we snap a picture of the receiving document either in the field or here, and then it automatically goes into TimberScan, and it sets up for a 3-way match. But we also send a file, and this is with TimberScan, where we send a file, And based on the receiving of that PO, we automatically do the PO, the AP entry of distribution. So when the invoice comes in, you just key in the header or use our capture program to automatically pull in the header. And then when you match up the documents, it'll finish out the entry so you can eliminate all the data entry and go to detailed POs. So it's a very, very powerful product. And it allows us to be able to do some things that the Sage products don't do, and as well as mobilizing all the process. So this particular piece of the puzzle is one of our higher end applications, but it really does manage your inventory system from soup to nuts. Now, a couple of things too, just to add, just so that you can see, we have an equipment module, which it don't read into this any more than what it does, is it tracks equipment and where it's at. So you build a location movement form, you set up your equipment, and we can interface this with Sage's equipment modules, or you can use its own. You can build a PM form, you can build movement forms, so you can mobilize all the transactions and be able to have up-to-the-minute information on where your equipment is. So like you could have an inventory, if you wanted to run an inventory when the equipment comes back in from demobilizing the job, or you might have an inventory of items that you're going to mobilize the job with. So you can move all that over at one swoop, and then that way anybody in the system knows where that equipment is. The second thing applies to like preventative maintenance forms. You can build your own PM schedules for those equipment items and set up, milestones where you want to do a PM on that equipment. And it's you can take pictures of the equipment like before and after delivery and stuff like that. You can have accident forms that are tied to the equipment. So you can create your own forms here that tie into the equipment management. But again, this is one of our advanced feature products. It requires customization, but we got 80% of it done. So you just build around it the things that you may or may not want to do. Now, I'm going to jump out real quick just to show you another component that we have worked on. This is a new product for us. This is our work order dispatch system. And we're very proud of it. We've got about 4 or 5 out there. We're working through feature request changes and things like that. But generally speaking, what happens is that on the work order side, we have a basic dispatch function. So like, for instance, you have a calendar and you can come in here and, double click here and say, set up a new order. And then that way you can set up the customer location. You can pick the equipment and all that. Very much what you would do in HVAC. But this can start the actual dispatch of that particular order, and you go from there. But the work order system that we have, which is our work ticket system, basically you can define, and this is another customization, you can define the work process of that particular work ticket. So we can start where you create the work ticket. You can then submit. Once it's submitted, you got your submitted work tickets here. You got your reviewed work tickets here, and then approved. And then we handle the whole billing cycle transaction and send it back to Sage. You can have contract billing. You can have pricing lookups and things like that. But all of the work ticket scenario functionality that we have is all integrated. So for instance, based on the work ticket type, determines what the header information is. And you can see you can have different types of work tickets in here. And then this changes based on that. Work tickets can be routed. So you can see how that works out here. It's all integrated to your Sage products. So you can come in here, and when you pick a cost code, it's going to go through there and select that, the cost codes and things like that. These tabs on the bottom, for instance, if you're doing time, you can put time on the work ticket and it feeds our payroll system. Okay. You can utilize equipment. So when you come down here, you can come in here and put equipment on here, and then that's going to track to the equipment module so that we can, post that time to the equipment module or track that usage and things like that. Material is tied to inventory. And from here, you can do a requisition, which sends it to the purchasing agent to order the material, and it tracks it to the work order. You can return material from a job site. This on hand will actually transfer material from the inventory into your job site. So it has a lot of that along with all the other things that you might do, like outside purchasing or will call stuff. You can manage third-party rentals in here. If the user needs approval from the customer, they can sign this and track the approval on the customer side. And then, of course, there's a billing component to this where it manages that billing so the person can see what they're going to get billed for, and you can email the billing report to them. So the work order system is, again, a highly customized system that we can come in and take over that whole aspect of your system, integrate it with our other applications, and be able to give you a total solution out of the box for that particular functionality. So that being said, it kind of wraps up my presentation. Hopefully what you've been seeing today is what we think is going to be the future of software for the core, at least for the core world, because we're fitting all of that into our product line. What we feel we can do with the Sage product line, along with your dealer, is augment the product. So in the Sage world right now, with things changing the way that they are, as far as, you know, the features and things that, you know, the mobilization, all that, we're going to keep up the pace with all the other stuff so that your core base system doesn't have to change. You know, you still have an investment that you've made in getting your ERP systems going. What we're trying to do is complement that with some new technology, so that basically what we can do is really streamline your process, get you into the web. You know, so a lot of our clients, you know, they'll sit down there and say, hey, we want to get to the web. We want to bring all this out to our field. Well, sometimes they say, well, that means I got to change, you know, my software. Well, you know, that's a big deal. Here, you can do that with our solutions and be able to do that while you still keep your in-house ERP that's on premise, you know, solid and bulletproof, because that's what Sage has done for the years that they've been in business. Is they're a great ERP system. So at the end of the day, this is our, you know, this is kind of the story we tell. We've been around for a long time. We've got a lot of customers, and we feel like we're going to be able to introduce this product and have a long-term effect on the Sage world. So that's my show.
All right, great, Daniel. Thank you for all that information. Everybody, if you do have questions, go ahead and, like I said, you can put them in the chat. If you want to ask a question verbally, if you entered your PIN at the beginning, you can click the button to raise your hand, and I will attempt to unmute you, and you can ask your question verbally.